You're listening to Booth Talk from the After Movie Diner, and although we've had some really rather impressive guests and interesting and fascinating and funny and weird and wonderful guests here on Booth Talk over the years, I never quite imagined that I'd be saying this next sentence. We are incredibly happy and overjoyed, one might say, to introduce Steve the Goots Guttenberg into Booth Talk today to talk mainly about the movie Diner, but in general to talk about all sorts of things around his career. Anyone who grew up in the 80s or 90s knows Steve Guttenberg all too well from the movie franchise Police Academy, Cocoon, Short Circuit, Three Men and a Baby, you name it. The man was in everything and had back-to-back hits all through the 80s and into the 90s. So it really is just an absolute thrill to speak to Steve the Goots Guttenberg today, all about his career. And this interview serves as a companion piece to a podcast we did over on the After Movie Diner podcast, all about the film Diner. So when you get done listening to Steve Guttenberg talk about the film, head on over to aftermoviediner.com or the After Movie Diner podcast and take a listen to me and Jay Mayo talking all about the film from 1982, Diner. If you like this interview and you've been enjoying the Booth Talk interviews lately, please don't forget to spread the word. Word of mouth really does matter for shows like ours. So retweet, like, share, comment, tell a Facebook friend, tell a family member, whatever it is, about Booth Talk from the After Movie Diner. And don't forget to rate and review us wherever that is possible on your podcasting platforms. Anyway, without further ado, this incredible conversation with the Goots Guttenberg. This is just a real pleasure for me. I'm a big fan of your work, and thank you. A real pleasure to be talking to you today. So thank you for agreeing to be on the After Movie Diner. I just wanted to actually start off talking about After Movie Diner. I wanted to start off talking about the movie Diner. It's one of the things that got me interested in wanting to talk to you. I had been rewatching it lately, and oh man, what a great film, right?
Yeah, it was a great movie. It was, I think it was the Vanity Fair voted it the most impressive movie of the last 30 years. And it was very special because it created a new way of filmmaking that hadn't been seen since sort of maybe since great foreign directors worked. Barry was able to work like a foreign director. He was able to use overlapping when people did their single shots. There was a rhythm to the cast, to the ensemble, where everybody felt that they were you were following each and every story, and each and every story was important, but it was an ensemble piece.
Definitely, yeah.
And I just I felt that you had 10 very, very hungry actors. You had a director who was starting the peak of his career, and also a lot of it was luck. We got very lucky. MGM was not going to release it because they felt it wasn't actually a terrific teen movie, which it wasn't, and it wasn't going to bring in that Porky's crowd, which they wanted. And Barry and Mark Johnson's, I think his mother, the producer, Mark Johnson, his mother or his cousin, was friendly with Pauline Kael, who lived upstate New York. Yeah. And I think she spoke to, his mother or something to that effect spoke to Pauline Kael and said, my son made this great movie and they won't release it. And I guess Pauline Kael said, let me take a look at it, because I like Barry Levinson. I know who he is. She looked at it, and she invited Barry up to show it at her class upstate. I think it's Katona, I think. Anyway, he showed it. She wrote, she said, you know what, screw it, I'm going to write a review about it, even if it's not being released. So she wrote a review in the New Yorker, and it took off. You know, it's opened at the Angelica in New York City, one of the the best theaters in New York, which is actually now a catering hall. And the movie took off, and created a jumping off point for all of our careers. So I'm very, very grateful to the movie.
Yeah, but no, back in the time when those key critics were those critics we know the names of could really make or break a movie. I think that time was sort of fascinating, and like you say, it doesn't have the Porky's vibe to it. If anything, it sort of leads the way for movies like The Outsiders and things like that, and sort of those ensemble teen movies that would come later that are more dramatic and less salacious, let's say. I mean, I suppose it does. There is an alternate reality where Dinah was sold on the back of the popcorn scene, I guess, if they wanted to really sell it like a Porky's movie. But I'm really glad they didn't go that way.
No, there was a guy named, I'm not going to say his name, but he worked at MGM, and he just said, this movie's crap. I'm not releasing it, putting it on the shelf. We're taking a loss. But what's really terrific is that it created a new sort of subgenre. Yeah. And people really got into it, and filmmakers exploded with all these ensemble talky movies,
coming of age stuff and things like that.
Yeah, and you'll just see, there not that people ripped it off, but they were inspired from it. So they created their own manner of filmmaking, where it was cool, a small circle of friends and movies like that. Where you could just have a bunch of people sitting around talking, and it's interesting. Yeah.
I mean, you can draw a line from something like Dinah to St. Elmo's Fire and all those kind of movies that came in between, even stuff like Stand By Me and Breakfast Club and things where they kind of put together ensembles, and it was more about the emotion and the characters than it was necessarily about, anything, like I say, too salacious or too action-packed. It was just about the characters, and I think it's funny sometimes that we forget we're all living those kinds of lives. And if we only watch escapist movies or escapist theater, it doesn't really cover that cathartic emotion that we need to sometimes have when we're watching art,
Yeah, well put. And it's the art that actually changes society. But let's be realistic. Why do we go to the movies? We go to the movies to escape. The world has always been a dramatic and tumultuous place. Mm-hmm. And whether it's Greek drama or it's Shakespeare and it's the Old Globe, or it's, watching Family Feud, or watching, The Price is Right television show, or Two Broke Girls, or something, a Police Academy. These are very, very necessary distractions.
Oh, I agree.
Because they're very necessary. So years ago in the 50s, these superhero movies, which I would love to be part of because they're very successful, they were B movies. Captain Marvel and gee whiz, Creature of the Black Lagoon, Superman, Batman. These were B movies. The Invisible Man, all these, and Universal was putting them out. The Werewolf, and they were, just sort of, kiddie movies. And now now look how it's turned around, because we don't have anybody in society to look up to anymore. So we look up to an imaginary person who has imaginary values. Yeah. These, there's a great article that came out in the New York Times the other day about the selfishness of America. Yeah. And perhaps the world. We've just become incredibly selfish. That's why everyone's taking a selfie. Look at me. Look at me. Yeah. Look at me on Facebook. Look at me on Twitter. Look at me on Instagram. Look at me on TikTok. Look at me how I dance. Look at me. Look at me.
Yeah.
You know, I really I realize what happens to our world is people want to save the rainforest, they want to save the gorilla, they want to save the environment. They could not care less about the people next door, and that's a real, you know, issue. So getting back to, you know, a movie like Diner, these are stories about people talking, and if you have the patience to watch it or watch a movie about people talking, you actually, at the end of it, you go, wow, that was great. It's like sort of like a teenager going to a history class he doesn't want to go to, and he really doesn't want to. He'd rather go to gym and play dodgeball,
right?
Or, you know, climb up a rope or something. But once he sits there and he hears about the intricacies of the English manner, or he listens to stories about the French Revolution, all of a sudden he says, "Wait a minute, that was I just sat there for an hour and I liked it." And but we can't get away with that. The fact that movies are about escaping, and you know, Europe has always used movies to change society, and we escape now. You know, whether it's, you know, listen, you can watch Captain America and think that you've learned some sort of a lesson, but it really is about an imaginary person.
Yeah,
it's really not about a real person.
But I think that's why something like Diner, which is interesting, because even in the 80s, because it was a vintage film, it was set in a previous time. It was a historic film in that regard, in its setting. It always stays relevant in the sense that, but it also always teaches the fact that, you know, human nature really doesn't change, whether it's the 18th century, the 1950s, or now. And relationships and human relationships sort of will always be this fascinating tangle, and sort of fascinating area for comedy, for art. So in a weird way, because it's set in the 50s and we're now so far away from that, both ideologically, but also technologically, it is an escape in its own way. You escape back to the Americana of it all. Do you know what I mean? So that there is an escapist element to watching it, I think, in 2020. How did the role of Eddie Simmons come to you originally? What were you doing, and how did the movie come to you?
Oh, it was a natural actor's access to it. My agent called me and said there's a part in this movie called Diner, and we want to give you an audition. That was it.
That was it, yeah.
I showed up to Wilshire Boulevard, to Jerry Weintraub's office, and I auditioned for Barry Levinson. You know, it's kind of cool, you know, in those days. Well, I don't know, maybe still, but very rarely. The audition process is much different today. Very few times do you show up in person. Now it's a self-tape or et cetera. But in those days, you know, you met the director the first time. Yeah. Whereas now, you know, you'll meet an assistant casting director or something to that effect, and if they like you, then you'll move on to the next one. But this time, actually, Barry was like sitting right there. You met him, and we had a conversation, and I read the material, and he said, "Okay, come on back." Came on back and did it again, and he said, "Okay, I'm going to set up a screen test." And I think the screen test was in New York. So I went to New York, and I think I screen tested with Tim Daly and Danny Stern, I think.
Yeah.
But also a guy named John Doe was actually in the running for Boogie, Mickey's part.
Yeah.
And he was a musician in the group called X.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And yeah, he was like a really cool, tough-looking guy. And then, then I got the call that I got the part, and it was really funny. I had a little bit of heat before the movies, before we started the movie. I did a television movie called Miracle on Ice.
Yeah.
Which was about the Olympic team, the hockey team. I also did a movie called Can't Stop the Music, which was with the Village People.
Yeah.
And Caitlyn Jenner, who was Bruce then. So the deal was, I thought this was a really cool story. The deal was, and Mickey had done Body Heat. So the deal was I could take $30,000 and take first position in the credits, or $35,000 and take second position in the credits. And I remember I was sitting at this, I think I had a little house, and I had a friend over named Mike Binder, who's a director now. Very talented guy. So I get the phone call, I get the job, and my manager tells me, here's the deal. And I say, well, I'll take second position and more money. and Mike Binder goes, no way. No way, you're taking first position, less money. I go, no, I want the money. And then my manager says, well, no, Mickey Rourke wants second position. He wants the money. And we were fighting about who would take second position, which we both wanted. We wanted the money.
Oh, that's funny.
I lost out. I had first position with less money. And, 35, 40 years ago, $5,000 probably was, what maybe $15,000 is now. So
yeah,
it was a little bit of money.
But it certainly set you up for a decade that saw you have tremendous success after tremendous success as a leading man. Yeah. So I think that probably worked in your favor eventually. Not that Mickey didn't have a great career as well, but you really did take over that decade and make it your own. Could you relate at all to someone, your character, who would quiz his wife-to-be on sports before agreeing on the wedding? Like, what was your inroad into sort of understanding and relating to that character?
Well, I would say I have a few friends who I grew up with who are a bit obstinate, and I'm actually kind of a stubborn person. I'm sort of I don't mind. I'll stay in my room. I don't need this. So I think that I related to test, which was sort of the last test before you say, okay, this ship can sail. So it was a tough test, and actually I think it was based on truth.
Yeah.
Barry said that his cousin actually did this sort of test. So, so sure. Listen, it was acting.
Yeah.
By the way, everything is acting.
Yeah.
Whether you're playing, Mahatma Gandhi and getting the Academy Award like Lord or Sir Ben Kingsley got, it's acting. So, I acted it. But, you try to relate as much as you can, and if you're a method actor, you try to bring it back to some experiences you have. But, at the end of the day, it's all acting.
Yeah, no, I think what it is, that's a character that could walk a fine line. I mean, you could, in a weird way, you played a different way, you could lose the audience, you know what I mean? You could come off as a bit of an ass. But I think your sense of humor, but also your understanding of being able to play the character's insecurities actually really help kind of sell the character. And it's interesting to me because there's that scene, obviously, where he's fixated with football, and Daniel Stern's character is obviously passionate about music. You jump forward to something like High Fidelity, and you look at the idea of a male's relationship with the things that he loves, whether that's music, whether that's film, whether that's football, and those themes, again, it's sort of that universal theme. Men tend to have those interests in a weird way that they're kind of oddly passionate about, in maybe a way, and I'm not saying women don't have it as well, but it seems to be something that's a through line there. Don't you agree?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think men are warriors, and when you can go into the barn, close the door, and do your hobby, do something that has nothing to do with pillaging the next town, there's a safety in it. There's a safety in Danny Stern's music. sports. As I said, it's like movies. It's a great distraction from pillaging and competing. So, I think we can all understand it. Some people don't have hobbies. I don't really have any hobbies myself. I'd like to always pick one up, but the way my life is led, I don't have time to sit and play the guitar or things like that. It's just how my life is. But
you made your hobby in a way, or you made your passion your career. You know what I mean? You made the acting passion your career, I guess. So in terms of playing with that ensemble cast, did you know any of the guys before going in? Had you guys met on the theater circuit or on the film circuit? And both during the film and post the film, were there any relationships and friendships made that last?
I didn't know any of the guys beforehand, but we all sort of stayed in touch. We're all not very, very close, but we recently had a Zoom, all of us, and it was really terrific. Danny Stern put it together.
Oh, wow.
And he sent out an email to all of us, and we kind of, I'd say once or twice a year, we talk a little bit on a group email. And Paul Reiser will do it. He just did his television show, and with Michael Douglas, and there was a scene where they were watching Diner on the in the part of the screenplay.
Oh, the Kaminsky method. Yeah.
Right. So they're watching Diner. So he wrote us all, and we all commented. I tell you what happened is when I did get in contact with the guys. When you talk to guys a long, long time, even if you haven't picked it up for a while, there's a terrific feeling of nostalgia, but sort of a safety that these guys know you and maybe they'll always have your back. And whether it's true or not, it's kind of a nice feeling to know. Because, a lot of times on movies, the great part about pictures is that you spend a lot of time with people. You become pretty intimate, and you do become friends. And the fact, I sort of changed my position on friendship. I used to think friends are only really good friends. Those are friends. Well, you can make that distinction and say, listen, I have 5 real friends. Of course. But there are golf friends, there are exercise friends, there are coffee friends. There are different type of friends. Not that you have to be best friends with everybody.
Right.
So you do create these relationships with people, these friendships that, after the movie, you go back to what your life was. And sometimes you stay friends with people, especially when you're younger. I think you are able to create these new friendships. But as you get older, you do an intense picture together. And then, sometimes you don't see each other for years. Because you have lives.
Yeah.
My mom and dad always say to me about people, you go, I haven't heard from this guy. Well, he's got a life. We all have lives.
Right. Well, that's a great way to put it. Stop expecting that someone sat around thinking about you all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. They're not going to, they just don't have time. They got they have kids, they got things to do.
Yeah.
And no one has time. And it's nothing against you. Just no one has time. So, we've all stayed in touch, and and I've seen Mickey. The only guy we haven't on our group text is Mickey. We don't have Mickey on there, and I would like to. And whenever I see him, he's pretty terrific. He's he's a very, very deep soul, and good guy, and he's gone through his stuff, and also being an actor and being famous and. For any actor, it really is, it could really, put you off balance.
Yeah.
It's just a very, unnatural, unless you're Caesar or Napoleon, then you have that kind of fame.
Yeah.
But you're an actor and you're famous, and you either you start to believe it yourself or, you start craving more of it, and it definitely plays with your head. And I think it also plays with the head of your family and your friends. I have some friends who are superstar actors, And I'll go, hey, let's go bowling. The guy's like, oh, I don't know. And I think, oh, shit, man. I want to go bowling. I don't want to, sit around all day.
Right.
I want to go do something, and I'm famous, but I don't get mobbed.
Right.
But I have some friends who, you'll go and then there'll be 20 people lined up for an autograph. And I understand that they're not that thrilled with that, but it's like, oh, shit, man. Can't just sit in the room all day. I mean, let's go do something, And I actually have a famous friend who I said, hey, let's meet at a mall. We're going to have coffee or something in New York.
Yeah.
So I was a little late, and he was waiting about 10 minutes, and there were a few people around him asking for autographs, whatever. He goes, "Oh man, you left me here, and get a." I'm like, I'm a person. I was 10 minutes late, and I'm sorry I'm not sorry you're famous, but what am I supposed to do, man? We can't sit in your penthouse. Your 10,000 square foot penthouse on Fifth Avenue all fucking day.
Yeah, right.
We gotta go do something. Actually, by the way, bro, you do go to the bathroom, so it's not like you're not you're not a god.
No.
I mean, let's try to do something normal. But what I'm saying is, fame and fortune, really plays sometimes a little havoc on a person.
Yeah, no, I was going to say it's funny. I will always think of one of the reasons why my show is called After Movie Diner is I always think of diners as the great equalizers. Anyone can kind of go into a diner. I think the one person or the peoples who can't go into a diner are the super famous. You can't just go sit down and have, eggs and hash or whatever because, like you say, you'll get mobbed. So just quickly, Steve, if this is okay, I just wanted to also ask you, you've been in two other ensembles that are sort of iconic at this point. Obviously, one is Police Academy, and the other one is Three Men and a Baby. Those two great ensemble casts. What were they like to work with? What were the differences in those two casts? And again, were there bonds made there that kind of continued on?
Oh yeah, both Police Academy. We just lost Marion Ramsey.
Yeah, I'm so sorry to hear
away.
about that. That was so very sad about that. We posted about that yesterday. That was tragic, and I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah. So but we've kept in touch with all the Police Academy people and Three Men. Tom, Ted, and I just had a Zoom together because Ted had a fundraiser, which you can probably find online, and it was great to see these guys again. I do think that it would have been great to do another picture with Tom and Ted, and I still think that there's another Police Academy with the original cast involved. But we do stay in touch. But as I said, we all have our lives, and it's hard enough to make room for your civilian friends, and then, so, what you do is you see each other when you see each other. And when you do, you pick it up right there and, hey, how you doing? How's everything? And, you've had some really cool, intimate conversations. So it's kind of fun to know each other that well. But lots of stuff has happened since you've talked, so people change also. People do change, they evolve.
And were you the driving force behind the Lavalantula reunions, or was that already kind of the plan through Sci-Fi when those were made?
No, that was me, because they were, Lavalantula was a, giant spider movie. And I kind of felt that I didn't do this when I had the power to help a lot of my friends get jobs. When you're young, or no excuses, I didn't do it. And not that I have many regrets, but it is one of the regrets. I have a lot of friends who needed work. And on the pictures I was on, I should have, instead of using people that I didn't know, used all the people I knew. So I respect a lot of actors who do that, who are the leads of their movies and are able to do that. So I thought at the time, I said, I saw Tawny Welch, and we caught up a little bit, and I thought, wow, what a really cool little cameo it would be, and give her and Tyrone some work. and any of the other guys from Cocoon. And then I thought about, Michael Winslow and Leslie and Marion. And, I just said, let me just, it would be really fun, and it would be great for me fun for me, and also great for the picture, because when you do these little, put these Easter eggs in movies, the audience loves it. But I also thought, wow, give them a little bit of work, and that's a good thing. And it's really hard being an artist, and it's a cold ass business. But especially when you're not working, and if you can help somebody, it's not charity because these are talented people, but it's like, hey man, you know how to row a boat. I got a part for a guy who knows how to row a boat. Why don't I give it to you?
Right.
You're my buddy. So those were great. So yeah, it was my idea.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun to see those guys come back. As I say, I'm a big fan of the Police Academy franchise, and hopefully we can talk again in the future and go over those movies. But talking about Diner today was a real pleasure with you, and thank you again for agreeing to be on the show. It means a ton to not only film fans, but people who are out there trying to create their own niche and do their own creativity, to have people like yourself support us in small ways. So I just want to say a big thanks for that.
Yeah, there's a great poem called If by Rudyard Kipling. And I always say to people in the arts, take a look at that poem. It'll inspire you. And it's very, very hard to be an artist, make a living as an artist, whether you're a sculptor, a painter, a writer, an actor, a dancer. It's tough. So, keep trying to be inspired. Keep looking at books and music and quotations that inspire you, and somehow be happy with your lot. If you're selling paintings on the corner or you're selling them at a gallery, be happy with your lot. The tortured artist has a place, but it's much better to be, I think, a well-balanced artist.
Oh, I agree 100%. And so thank you very much for that. And if you want to let anyone know before you ring off either what you're working on or what's coming up or what people can expect, that would be great.
Oh, right now, I've got a few pictures that are playing on VOD. One's Original Gangster, where I play a villain. And I play another sort of villain in another movie called Break Even. And these are small pictures, but I enjoyed making them. I did a movie over in London called Heckle, which I really enjoyed, playing a very dark character. And right now, I have small parts on a hit television series called The Goldbergs.
Oh yeah, big fan of that.
But I'm a guy looking for my next job and looking to make some noise and to shine and get a great part where people can see what I can do. And all of a sudden, things turn around. It's a funny game. That's what's great about being an actor. If you're an athlete, you only have a certain amount of time in your career. But if you're an actor and you stay in the game, sometimes the race is not always to the swift, but to those who keep on running.
Oh, yeah, definitely. So, the renaissance of the Guttenberg is about to happen. I can feel it, most definitely.
It really could.
Can't wait.
A lot. Yeah.
Can't wait, sir. Can't wait.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you ever so much, Steve, for your time today. This was a real pleasure again, as I said, and all the best in the future. And if there's any truth to those Police Academy 8 rumors, then I will be first in line for a ticket.
That's terrific. Thanks so much. Thanks for putting me on.
No worries. Take care, Steve. Bye now. Well, there we go. What a fantastic conversation there with Steve the Goots Guttenberg. Really had a lot of fun with that one. Really enjoyed it, as you could hear on the show. If you've enjoyed this interview and any of the other interviews that you've heard on Booth Talk from the After Movie Diner, then please do not forget to rate, review, share, like, comment, tell your friends. Word of mouth and social media sharing really, really, really does help with a program like this. And we have got a back catalogue of interviews that I think are just fantastic. So take a listen to our back catalogue, subscribe to the show, rate and review it, share it, and support us. And if you would like to support us financially, you can over at patreon.com/aftermoviediner. That's patreon.com/aftermoviediner for just $1 a show. And that would be phenomenal as well. Anyway, that's enough from me. Look forward to future interviews here on Booth Talk. Thanks very much and have a great week.